How's fall going?
Yeah, I mean it's we're kind of how we thought we would be right now at this part of camp. Still a lot of good competition. We've been rotating a lot of guys around and just trying to figure out who can do what, who can do where. Just kind of piece it up. We're nowhere even close to figuring out what that depth chart actually looks like, but we're getting closer, and guys are doing a nice job competing and working.
Yeah, one place that seems to be really competitive is that left guard spot. What have you seen there? And also Cam Irvin had an injury, it looked like the other day. Do you have an update on him by chance?
Yeah, Cam's going to be out for a season. He's not going to be out for a season or anything. So we're anticipating getting him back. Don't know what that timetable looks like, but we should get him back. And then, yeah, I mean, we've rotated Ben Sparks, Cam Irvin, Logan Parr, PJ Williams took a day there. Maybe missing someone, but we've got a lot of bodies we feel like we can win with. Just kind of figure out who's going to be the guy that kind of gets the nod. Do you rotate that position? And then you have guys like PJ Williams who are saying play, right? And we feel really good about Marcus Bryant and hiring White, but we've got to play PJ Williams. So we've got to find a way for a guy like that to get in the game because you're seeing his talent, his ability, and now he's comfortable with what we're doing. So like now you're seeing him just take off and progress every single day. So we've got good problems from that standpoint. I don't want to tease it too much because then when you do that, you get a lot of injuries, and now it backfires on you. But pleased with those guys and pleased with the guys that really came in. You're seeing like the Hiron Whites and PJ Williams. You're seeing the fact that they had that spring ball, the comfort levels coming through, and their game's starting to show.
With that, Justin obviously sat out spring, said he feels good, says he's playing without pain. What have you seen from him as he's stepped back in this fall?
Yeah, exactly what you said. He looks really good. And we've got to be smart, though. We can't forget he's still 8 months removed from surgery. So if it were a guy that just came back from the ACL surgery, we'd be like, all right, well, he's cleared, but let's not overwork him. So, like, I think, yeah, Wednesday's practice, we kind of gave him a day where we backed him off a lot and just let him, just to make sure we took care of him from that standpoint. So, and you may see that in the season. I mean, it may be a Ben Sparks or Cam Irvin or a Logan Parr, somebody like that will come in and give him a blow, and that way we can maintain that health and ease him into the season and have him in those games in November.
I think you've done this. I think you did this last year. But correct me if I'm wrong. But would you consider rotating in important games at the guard spot?
100%. Especially like you saw it last year in September with Bissinger and Jalen Thomas. We kind of rotated those guys early on. We did it with Osborne and Sparks early on last year. And really, if we didn't do that, I mean, we may not have had Justin Osborne in November. Like he kind of went everything blew out in the bowl game last year, and we probably wouldn't have had him if we would have said full board, let's go. The other thing we're trying to preach in the room is yeah, you want to compete, and yeah, you want to start, and yeah, you want to get the majority of reps, but it's my job that if you prove that you're good enough to help us win games, it's my job to play you. So it's been a really unselfish room from that standpoint, and I think they trust the fact that if they play to the level that we think is good enough to win games, we'll find ways to get them in the game.
Just how big is maybe having some questions and figuring some things out from a position of power of we have a lot of guys who can do this, as opposed to maybe being, oh shoot, who can we maybe put in there that's not going to hurt us too bad?
Yeah, it's a much better problem to have. And you also have a guy like Ja'Kai Clark. Ja'Kai started 42 games at the University of Miami, and he's got 2 years to play one. So now, Ja'Kai's a great football player. So Ja'Kai's kind of a guy who he took all last spring off. We got him here late in June. So you talk about he knows football. He's a great football player, but now there's a conditioning level, and you don't want to just like throw him totally into the fire too and get him injured and set him back. So he's progressing along as well. So, yeah, guys like that are guys that are all going to fit into the pieces of the puzzle, and it's my job to try and figure that out.
Does your trust in Branson, I guess, allow you to take your time with Ja'Kai?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Branson doesn't say a whole lot, but he's probably the captain of the room as far as what goes on, and he sets it with how he works, how he shows up every day. Really sharp. All those stereotypes about being a coach's kid, he lives up to. And he's just tough. He's tough, and other guys trust him and know that he's going to show up and he's dependable, and he's a key component to what we're trying to do.
Woods got in the rotation today. How does he look so far?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put him in the rotation if I didn't think he was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
So Alex has got a lot of high-end potential and ability, and he flashes. So Alex's older brother was all-conference center for me at Florida Atlantic when I coached there. So I texted his brother last night. I was like, I'm gonna give him some 2 reps. We'll see if he can sink or swim. So he doggy paddled. He didn't swim, but he doggy paddled today, and he's going to be a guy that, like, I mean, hopefully we're in a situation where we don't need him this year, but he's going to be a guy that I think can have a really good career here.
How did PJ look at left guard? I mean, obviously a lot of talent.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was mentally.
Yeah.
Physically, PJ could go down the board and do any of them. We still forget with PJ that he's still his second year of playing college football.
Yeah.
You know, so like there's a learning curve for all those guys that have to do that. But talent-wise, PJ is one of those few players that could play all 5 positions and be really, really good at all 5 positions. So he's athletic and long enough to where he can match someone athletically on the outside, but he's also anchored and big and powerful enough to where he can move people on the inside. So he's a pretty. I mean, there's a reason he was who he was at high school, and you're starting to see it every day in practice.
Is guard maybe, talking like long distance here, maybe his best position? Or I mean, he's just athletic enough to?
I think he's very similar to how Osborne is, like to where if something happened to Hiram White and we need a right tackle, Justin Osborne could be our right tackle and we'd feel great about it. I think that's kind of PJ's world. PJ can do a lot of tight positions, and it's nice to have that. And you talking even further on your career, if you're an NFL guy and you're the 8th man on the roster, you need to know how to play all 5. So eventually we'll grow to that with PJ, but I don't want to overload him mentally when he's having such success right now.
One follow-up on PJ. I mean, he's a guy that had a rocky start to his college career. What kind of mentality have you seen from him? Just coming in spring, learning, and then you said the acceleration so far.
Yeah, PJ's like when we got into recruiting PJ, it was a situation of people say what they want to say, and you hear what you want to hear. I went to the high school, talked to his coaches, went to his house, talked to his mom and dad, talked to PJ. You're like, okay, this is a case of a kid being immature, made a mistake, and because his family is awesome, his coaches in high school said, yeah, he was great for us. He was a multi-sport athlete, and then PJ's a charmer. I mean, he'll hit you with a smile, and he's got a good personality. He's outgoing and all those things, and he was really remorseful. Has turned the corner. Has been great. Has been zero issues for us. And now you're starting to see him be comfortable with the guys, and now his personality's coming out and showing through. So I couldn't be more proud of where he's at, who he is. I'm not happy that what happened in his past happened to him, but I'm glad he's here and that we have him. And so thankful for PJ, and those guys in the room have been great, of taking him on, mentoring him, and bringing him along.
Going back to Branson a little bit, obviously you weren't here that first year, but this is now his 3rd year starting at center. How much does an experienced center really help out that entire group?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it calms things down. Especially, you always in a game plan, you're always trying to, like, hey, they're probably going to line up in this, and they're going to do this, but you're always going to see a wrinkle. You're always going to see something different. And a guy who's just, like you said, he's played a lot of snaps. He's seen that. He can take a deep breath, and if it isn't that, he can get them all on the same page and do that. That alone, there's a calming presence there, and he's a good football player. So all that combined is pretty good.
And then with that, obviously, especially the added size you have now, he's definitely the smallest guy on that line. Preston talked about his toughness and a little bit of nastiness in there as the player. How much does he kind of have that to not get pushed around?
Yeah, I think Branson's a guy that's always played with a chip on his shoulder. That's probably how he's raised and probably how he's always played. But you probably feel a little bit more. I mean, we talked about last spring, I think, after spring ball, and we talked about Ja'Kai Clark coming in and what does that look like for Branson Hickman and those type things. And Branson was probably the one person who didn't concern himself with it and just kept working and playing hard. And he's just a football guy that is going to show up and work and grind and do what he needs to do to have success.
We're not obviously football coaches, but it's pretty apparent how much bigger and faster this defensive line is and how much more talented and depth there is. one, what do you think of the defensive line, and how much has that been a good challenge for your offensive line?
Yeah, I would just, as far as competitiveness and those type of things, there's definitely a lot of iron sharpening iron from that world. We're highly competitive. Those guys have been working hard as far as talents and abilities, and want to see that's Coach Tibbs, that's his department, but there's a noticeable difference as far as what we're seeing on that side of the ball.
Might as well talk about Marcus Bryan a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, another returner for you. Got that experience in your system and in this offense last year. What have you seen him opposite of Hiram?
Yeah, Marcus has kind of continued on from kind of where he left off. The thing Marcus has done is there's just a consistency in his game. And the biggest thing Marcus has done is he's starting to live it outside of the field. He really took it on his own probably a year and a half ago. He was a guy that had ankle problems, was stiff in his ankles. But every day he's with our strength staff and he's doing ankle flexibility and doing all those things to help loosen up his athletic ability. And then you saw it start to come through in his strength numbers, and he got his diet right this spring and this summer. So he's starting to live like a pro off the field, and you're starting to see that correlation on the field as far as his consistency.
Yeah, Coach Grizz talked about that those ankle works, the work on the ankle. How does that translate?
So they do a nice job from the standpoint of if they'll go through and they'll do a functional test or movement screening for those guys, and through the test they'll say the guy's ankle stiff, hip stiff, those type things, and then from there they're like, okay, this is your weaknesses. These are exercises you need to do to correct those weaknesses. If you think about it, if you think about your body as just being a chain, there's one weak link in that chain, you're not going to be able to transfer power through what we do. In our world, especially offensive line wise, if a guy's ankle stiff and he's playing on his toes a lot, probably the analogy we use is you would never shoot a cannon from a canoe because the canoe's out of balance. And if a guy's able to put all of his feet in the ground, he's able to drive more power from the ground and have more balance and be a lot more functional. So Marcus doing that has allowed him to be a lot more powerful. And also just every time your body goes through a lever, so toes, ankles, knees, hips, every time there's a bend, there's a loss of force. So in Marcus's world, when he's playing on his toes, one, he's out of balance, and now there's more of a loss of force because he can't keep all of his foot in the ground. So that's been really big for him, and you've seen it translate on the field.
Have you ever had offensive tackles this big?
No.
Yeah.
No. They look the part, and I mean we're still growing up. We're still doing some things. I mean there's weaknesses that both of those guys have to address, but I would much rather address it from a 6'7", 320-pound perspective than a smaller perspective.
Have you called them the Twin Towers as well? Is that
no, I think everyone else is kind of doing that, but
yeah,
and I think there's something to be said about Hiram White. Hiram's a guy who's his 7th year of college football. He has a family, has a child. Came to us because he was having a child at the time, and his priorities are completely different than PJ Williams' priorities. But yet those guys are finding a way to blend and get along. And Hiram's not had. I mean, coming from the SEC, all those type of things. Hiram's not had any ego. He's really. Marcus has kind of taken Hiram under his wing from that standpoint, from the correctives and all of those things, and you saw a nice blend with those guys.
I know we talk about rotations and all that stuff, but at the same time, Sparks and Parr are two very different players, and inside Clark and Hickman are very different players.
Yeah.
How do you handle that as a coach?
Yeah, I think we got to just continue to play those guys' strengths and work on their weaknesses from a standpoint. I think Sparks and Parr bring a lot of the similar qualities to the game. Ja'Kai and Branson are different players right now. The thing Ja'Kai can do that Branson can't is Ja'Kai can play all three in the middle. I mean the biggest thing is we just gotta find what clicks the best, and if it's multiple guys, can we function that way? And right now I think we'll be able to.